the stock market, meaning companies, new highs.
I'm not fucking leaving. The show goes on. Nuts! They're nuts! They know nothing!
An online network called Internet.
Well, it's very hip to be on the internet right now.
Welcome, my degenerates. The rest of your life starts right now on Market Mania, the no bullshit approach to all financial markets, including precious metals, cryptocurrency, and of course, the largest casino in the world, the U.S. stock market. Joining me today, fellow degenerates, Matt Glantz and Brett Ritchie. We're going to start out talking about, it's just been a wild day. We're going to start out talking about this highly erotic candle of nickel just going absolutely apeshit. In and amongst the Mania watch here in the top right, I mean, all the major indices are having a huge rebound after all the war headlines. Bitcoin is catching a little bit of a bid. I like to see it run, but the really interesting thing there is the 10-year yield has been going up and down like a crypto over the last couple weeks. And of note, tomorrow and Thursday, there's a couple more bond sales from the Treasury, so we're going to probably watch that fly all over the place again tomorrow. So in and amongst that backdrop, we've got nickel absolutely taking off unexpectedly in an unprecedented way. Now, Brett, you brought this across the table. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I obviously wasn't paying any attention to nickel, right? And then it just completely mooned. There's shades of GameStop AMC here to me. Supposedly there is some sort of short squeeze on. So kind of want to get Matt's thoughts here. Would you see, like, would you short this now, right? This is like an obvious short, but GameStop, you shorted that. That did not work out. Sometimes the obvious shorts in this environment, you can get just absolutely massacred on. That seems to be what's happening here to whoever was shorting. Is there any point you would hop on to short this thing?
No, I mean, I don't know anything about nickel, so I don't get involved in it. So I just don't jump into things just because they're up a lot. A lot of people just think it's an automatic short. Like you said, it's an obvious short. But who knows if it's an obvious short here? Yeah. It could double again in the next couple of days. And then what are you going to do? You're just going to hold on for dear life, and you're going to get blown out. So you just don't know when to short it. You really can't. And a lot of these things hold up for a while, even if they don't go down, or even if they don't go up right away, they don't go down much. It takes some time. It's not like they're just under, like an upside down V. It's tricky. So I just don't get involved in things I don't know much about like that.
Well, I can tell you, the guy's been screaming.
I am.
I can tell you, as I've been screaming for the past 5 years, buy silver, that these things are impossible to time. It's interesting here too. James Baker says in reply to this candle that who would have guessed that a nickel's melt value is now 11 cents higher than the 5-cent face value. That's kind of crazy. And the reason this is happening, of course, is because of all of the Ukraine news. A lot of the nickel came out of Russia, but the details they really don't tell you is that the short squeeze that you mentioned earlier, Brett, was happening to some rich Chinese billionaire, and of course the London Metals Exchange, where most of this went down, was halted on that person's behalf so they didn't get fully liquidated. And that's what happens when you're not in the big boys club. You get wrecked, but if you are super rich, you get the markets halted for you. But the interesting thing I just want to mention finally before we move on here is that the reason nickel really spiked is because most of nickel's contracts for futures are what's called rehypothecated, almost 50 to 1 or 100 to 1. It's hard to say, but that means that for every ounce of actual nickel held at the London Metals Exchange, there are probably 50 to 100 contracts out there promising physical delivery. Well, most people don't take physical delivery of their metals. They just trade the contracts. They trade paper contracts. That's like a fake supply, and that's how these metals markets are manipulated. And what we're seeing here in nickel is people trying to take physical delivery of their nickel and finding that it just isn't there. This is a run on nickel, and that's why the price went up like that. And as I've been saying for so long, this is going to happen to silver too. I think silver is primed for exactly this kind of candle. So
the silver squeeze, right? They've been teasing that for decades.
Exactly. So maybe my wildest conspiracy theory dreams will finally come true. But okay,
I gotta say just quickly, it's a little interesting that nickel is what's running, right? You think these events are great for Bitcoin, it's great for gold, right? Historically, that's what everyone's been waiting for, this sort of thing. This is where Bitcoin and gold are supposed to shine, and they're not really doing anything, surprisingly, potentially.
It is interesting.
Stealing the show.
That's true. That's true. So, moving on, the price of oil has also been skyrocketing. It has just been a banner couple of weeks for commodities. Happy to say, humbly on this show, we have been screaming for people to get into commodities. Let me make sure I got the right window here. Pardon me.
Yeah, so Tony, oil is 126 a barrel right now, $126.
Yep.
It was under 90 less than 2 weeks ago, so it's up a lot since then. It got up to like 130 last night on the overnight session. Came back into like, I don't know, under 120 today, and now it's back to 126. Everything's moving on headlines with Russia and the blockades and all that kind of stuff. So it's just interesting how oil keeps going up here. It's bad for the Biden administration. Obviously, everyone sees it at the pump. We're seeing $5, $6, $7 gas now. So it's interesting to see how he manages the situation, because you can't just, even if he got rid of those orders that people can't drill more, even if he got rid of them now, it's not like drillers can just open up new wells in a day or a week. It takes like 6 months to a year to open up new spots. So it's going to be interesting how he gets out of this. I know you guys both kind of think it's a kind of a conspiracy thing where they're going to do anything so they don't get the blame for the midterms. So Brett, what's your take on this one?
I mean, this is a tough spot, right? That's the entire. I don't think it's necessarily a conspiracy theory. I think that this is not a particularly principled administration. They're really focused on their own power, right? So they're willing to sacrifice, say, American lives in the quality of life in 2026 if it's going to ensure that they're going to win in the midterms. They're not going to make a decision that might hurt them in the short term, but would be better for the American people in the long term. And that's most administrations. That's not even necessarily calling these guys out. So it's tough. You have the oil, you have COVID, which they've done a good job of kind of sweeping under the rug. Look at the new shiny distraction. Now there's a war, and that's the same people that were lecturing us about COVID and we're totally wrong. Everyone just immediately falls into lockstep and puts the Ukraine flag in their bio. And it's like critical thinking is out the window for most people in this day and age, and then you're a Putin apologist if you take any other stance other than like the very narrow mainstream belief. That's a bit of a tangent. I don't know what it's going to mean for oil, but I know Tony called $200 a barrel. He got called a clown by some clown in our mentions, and it's marching, so it might get there.
We'll see. Now, a big part of this, of course, is happening, again, because of the Russia-Ukraine stuff. Now, Russia supplies a lot of oil into Europe and a lot of natural gas, and Germany just came out today and said, look, we're not cutting off the Russian oil and natural gas. So I think all of these embargoes that the West is doing is just going to drive up oil for us. I think Russia's going to pen new deals with Pakistan, China, India, and create an entirely different financial system so that they can move their oil to the parts of the world that they know need it. I think that's what they're leaning on. So look for oil to go up in the very near term here. I think it's war is good for that black gold. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about funding the war. All right, nothing like a war bond whenever you gotta pay for some insane carnage in the middle of Europe. What do? We sell war bonds. Now, I don't know who's got the stomach to buy these, and I can't imagine these bonds would even have a rate that would come close to beating the inflation that's going to come from the money printing surrounding this war. So I'm wondering, does anybody really want to buy an EU war bond right about now? It feels kind of bad on the tongue. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, it doesn't sound like something that would be very, very marketable at this point. So, I mean, in this day and age, that kind of stuff doesn't work.
I mean, even if we set up a USO tour and we had a bunch of girls in mini skirts and patriotic EU flags going on tour like they did in World War II, I mean, I'm thinking that would
not
work
for me.
pretty well.
I don't know anyone that wants to buy that.
Well, Brett, you're the contrarian.
NFT, you talk in my language then, but the bond, no thanks.
Brett, you mentioned a war NFT. I mean, Ukraine was doing that just last week or something to that effect. So
they're going to do an airdrop, token airdrop. I send them money not because I wanted to give the government of Ukraine money to fight a war, but I was gambling that the airdrop would be worth more, and then they canceled it. So no, I'm no complaints. I mean, you're like, that's not. Yeah, I sent a small amount. That's on me. But I think it's weird that your people are just sending government money to buy weapons and stuff, and but they think they're not, war supporters. It's just interesting.
Yeah, well, it's hard to trade in any market today and not have a little dirt on your hands. I mean, it's all so interconnected. But
yeah. Speaking
of which, let's get our hands dirty with the Market Mania pick of the day. Okay, I'd like to remind everybody this is not investment advice. We are not professional advisors. And also, before we give you these picks of the day, it would be really helpful to us if you guys could like and subscribe to us and share this content. Follow us on Twitter. Give us as much activity, comments down below. That sort of stuff pumps the algorithm. We had an episode the other day that had almost 3K views, and then the other one behind it had like 550. So I don't know what that magic sauce is, but sometimes we got it, and I think it's when you guys help us out. So please give us that love in the algorithm section. Okay, we are going to do some good picks here today. Matt, what have you got for us today?
Snapchat, they had great earnings a couple weeks ago. Stock went up to like 37 or 38 on earnings, and it's kind of come back with the market the last 2 weeks, but I still like it. So 31.80 Snapchat. Okay,
Brett, what are you looking at?
Very low conviction play here, but I'm rolling with BP. BP is down 10% in the last month. Chevron's up 20%. Exxon's up something 5-10%. I don't have any idea. It just seems weird that BP would be down when all these other ones are up. So get some British Petroleum.
All right. I like commodities. I would normally recommend commodities, even silver. I was talking about it earlier. Get your silver, and Mindak Jack would say if you can't hold it, you don't own it. So call our sponsor, Mindak Jack, and get some silver. But my pick today actually is JP Morgan. I think we buy the banks here. JP Morgan is pretty inexpensive relative to its 6-month price there, and I just think the money's going to flow. I think the money printing's coming. They're selling bonds. The money's going to get printed to buy those bonds. So I think all the banks are going up. I think the whole thing's going to hyperinflate after this war dip. So buy and hold JPM, and it pays dividends. All right, we are going to get out of here. We have had some fun today. It's some crazy markets. I don't even know what's going to happen next. I just know it's going to be fast and weird, and we're going to be here to cover it all for you. So join us on Thursday, if there is a Thursday. But for now, it's lights out.
I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have. I never sleep. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine.
Time to right the wrong. So your hands in the air if you like the song. If you're going over there, take it twice as long. Last time ain't talking about Tylenol. Oh, I bet you'd like to know. You can come around the way if you're trying to go. If you want to switch lanes for a pot of gold or a domino, out of control. The usual. Get mad cause I'm looking at your girl.
Switch it up.
I do it so much louder than everything you've heard. Everybody heard, got the word that the world wasn't turning. Act like you're in a jury of how we're turning, where I would turn it. Can't lie like it's Mississippi burning. Don't act like you're in a daze. I imagine should've looked the other way. Couldn't clear space on my mind, was afraid of the time. Strobe lights like in the moonlight. I'm in the mood right now, how about tonight?